Prepare yourself for a story that will ignite a firestorm of emotions, a tale of betrayal so profound it forces an unimaginable choice, and the breathtaking transformation that arises from the ashes of a shattered life. You might think you know the limits of human cruelty, but this story will redefine them, leaving you wondering, how far would you go to reclaim your existence when everything you've given has been tossed aside like garbage? The unthinkable birthday wish. It was a day etched in the calendar, a milestone marking Rebecca's 45th birthday, and my heart swelled with anticipation. I had arrived at her elegant home, a place I knew intimately, bearing a masterpiece of a cake. This wasn't just any cake, it was a bespoke creation from her most cherished bakery, a decadent chocolate and strawberry confection that had set me back a cool $200. But for Rebecca, my only daughter, the very light of my life, no expense was ever too great. I stood at her door, a wide, loving smile gracing my lips, expecting to see her face erupt in the same joyous glow it always had since she was a little girl. I pictured her throwing her arms around me, a moment of pure, unadulterated mother-daughter connection. But the moment the door swung open, the warmth in my chest curdled into a cold, hard knot. Her expression wasn't one of delight or even polite acknowledgement, but rather of profound annoyance, a visible irritation that seemed to radiate from her like an unwelcome aura. "Oh, it's you," she mumbled, her voice devoid of any affection, her gaze pointed somewhere over my shoulder, refusing to meet mine. My smile faltered, but I pressed on, my love for her overriding the sting of her immediate disdain. "Happy birthday, my love," I managed, extending the cake with its already lit candles, a flickering beacon of celebration. "I brought your favorite, chocolate with strawberries, just like when you were a kid." Rebecca responded with a theatrical sigh, heavy with resignation, as if my very presence, my gifts, were an intolerable burden. "Mom, we need to talk," she declared, her tone dry and unfeeling, stepping aside just enough to allow me entry, but offering not a single word of thanks for the effort or the expensive treat I held. We settled into the plush living room of her beautiful home, a house I knew all too well. It was the house I had completely financed for her and David when they embarked on their marital journey. A staggering $50,000, meticulously drawn from my life savings, the culmination of pennies painstakingly saved, earned through 40 relentless years of working double shifts as a dedicated nurse. The silence between us stretched, thick and suffocating, until Rebecca finally broke it, her voice taking on that chillingly detached quality I had come to associate with her in recent years. "You know, Mom," she began, a cold edge to her words, "I've been thinking a lot about my birthday, about presents, and about what would truly make me happy." I nodded eagerly, perhaps too eagerly, my heart desperate to please her. "Of course, my love. Tell me what you want and I'll get it for you. A trip, some jewelry, maybe that new car you mentioned?" My suggestions hung in the air, hopeful offerings. Then she turned, her eyes locking onto mine, and what I saw there sent a shiver of profound dread down to my very bones. It was a look of pure, unadulterated contempt. "The one thing I'd love most as a birthday present," she uttered slowly, deliberately, savoring each syllable like a poisoned delicacy, "is for you to just die." The shattering truth and a silent vow. The world, quite literally, ceased to turn. My breath hitched, and I felt an agonizing phantom pain, as if someone had brutally ripped my heart directly from my chest. Her words, those 3 horrific words, echoed in my ears, an endless, tormenting loop. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, she had wished for my death as a birthday gift. "What? What did you just say?" I managed to whisper, the question barely a sound as a tide of hot tears welled up, blurring my vision. "You heard me," she retorted, her voice a chilling blade that sliced through my composure. "I'm tired of you, Mom. Tired of your constant calls, your unexpected visits, of you always being here, bothering me. My life would be so much easier and happier if you would just disappear." My hands began to tremble uncontrollably, a tremor that started deep within and shook every fiber of my 72-year-old being. 45 years. 45 years of being her mother, of loving her unconditionally, and never, not in my wildest nightmares, had I ever imagined hearing such a monstrous sentiment escape her lips. "Rebecca," I choked out between sobs, "I'm your mother. I've given you everything. I've sacrificed everything for you." Exactly, she interrupted, rising abruptly from the sofa, her posture rigid, confrontational. And that's why you're suffocating me. I can't breathe with your constant presence. I need freedom. I need you to let me live my life without your drama and your emotional needs. The $200 cake, a symbol of my unconditional love, remained clutched in my shaking hands, its candles now melting, dripping wax onto the box, a messy reflection of my rapidly dissolving dreams for the day. All the visions I had held, hugs, laughter, a warm family dinner, vanished like smoke. But honey, I pleaded, trying one last time, my voice raw with desperation, I just want to be close to you, to be a part of your life. You're all I have. And that's exactly the problem, she shot back, crossing her arms defensively. The fact that I'm all you have. Go get a life of your own and leave me alone. I slowly pushed myself up from the sofa, my legs feeling like unstable jelly beneath me, clutching that cake which now felt like a cruel mockery. I can't believe you're saying this to me, I murmured, a profound ache in my soul. After everything I've done for you. Everything you've done? She laughed, a harsh, sarcastic sound that grated on my ears. Mom, everything you've done has been for your own benefit, to feel needed, to have control over my life. But I'm not a little girl anymore. I walked towards the door, each agonizing step feeling as if it were draining years from my very existence. As I reached the threshold, I turned one last time, a desperate flicker of hope in my heart, searching for some hint of regret in her eyes, some fleeting glimpse of the sweet little girl she once was. But I found only impatience. Impatience for me to leave, for me to disappear so she could finally celebrate her birthday, unburdened by the nuisance I had become. Happy birthday, Rebecca, I whispered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. And I walked out of that house, closing the door softly behind me. At that moment, I didn't know it would be the very last time I would ever enter that house as the mother who had sacrificed everything. What Rebecca didn't know was that her cruel wish had just awakened something profound and powerful within me, something that had lain dormant for decades. Decades of devotion, a lifetime of sacrifice. I stumbled back to my small apartment, my legs still trembling, my heart shattered into a million pieces. The $200 cake, a symbol of my utterly misguided devotion, ended up in the trash, its melted candles a stark reflection of the tears that streamed relentlessly down my face. I sank onto my old, worn sofa, the same sofa where I had cradled Rebecca as a baby, where I had lovingly read her bedtime stories for years, where I had cried tears of pure happiness every single time she had called me Mom. How had it come to this? How could my own daughter, the child I had carried in my womb for 9 months, wish for my death with such chilling indifference? My mind, racing and tormented, began to replay every memory, every single sacrifice I had made for her over the past 45 years. When she was just 3, struck down by a frightening bout of pneumonia, I had worked triple shifts at the hospital, pushing myself to the brink to pay for her life-saving medicine. It was $1,200 for antibiotics, an amount my meager insurance refused to cover. I found that money by selling my late mother's precious jewelry, heirlooms I had cherished, but Rebecca's life was paramount. When she turned 16 and yearned for that perfect prom night, I toiled every single weekend for 4 grueling months to afford her an $800 pink dress. I could still see the dazzling sparkle in her eyes as she tried it on, feel the warmth of her hug as she whispered, "Thank you, Mom, you're the best in the world." Those words, once my greatest treasure, now felt like a cruel, deceptive echo. Through her college years, when she changed her major not once, but thrice, I had covered every single tuition payment without a single complaint, a total of $42,000. This money came from taking out a second mortgage on my humble house, a decision that left me financially precarious. "Don't worry, honey," I would assure her every time she called, distraught over her studies. "Your education is the most important thing." When she married David, I had meticulously organized and paid for the entire wedding, a lavish affair costing $35,000, all so she could have the fairy tale wedding of her dreams, the most elegant ballroom in the city, the most exquisite flowers, a menu she selected without a moment's thought for the price tag. "I want my princess to have everything," I had declared, signing check after check, blissfully unaware of the true cost. And then, of course, came the house. That very house where she had just humiliated me beyond measure. When Rebecca and David decided they wanted to buy their first property, I hadn't hesitated for a second. "Don't worry about the down payment," I'd told them, my voice brimming with generosity. "I'll take care of it." It was a staggering $150,000, the bulk of my life savings, the money I had diligently squirreled away for my own retirement. But it didn't stop there. When the twins arrived 5 years ago, I seamlessly transitioned into the role of free babysitter. Every night, Rebecca and David wanted to go out. Every time they had plans and needed someone to watch their children, there I was, never charging a single cent, genuinely happy to help my daughter live the life she had always envisioned. When David lost his job last year, who stepped in to pay their mortgage for 8 months? Me. A further $16,000 siphoned from my pension, money that meant weeks of eating only rice and beans just to stretch my meager income. And when the twins eventually needed braces, another $4,000 I covered without a second thought. "Don't worry," I'd told them, seeing their distressed faces. "That's what grandparents are for." The reckoning, a financial awakening. I rose from the sofa, a new cold clarity settling over me, and made my way to my desk. There, in neatly organized boxes, I kept all the receipts, every single proof of every penny I had spent on my daughter and her family. I hadn't kept them out of mistrust, but rather from a strange sense of pride, a record of how much I had been able to provide. Now, those boxes felt like a monument to my foolishness. I began to do the math, a grim accounting of a lifetime of devotion. Raising Rebecca from birth until she was on her own, approximately $200,000. Her college education, $42,000. The wedding, $35,000. The down payment on their house, $150,000. The mortgage payments during David's unemployment, $16,000. The twins' braces, $4,000. And the countless birthday and Christmas gifts over all those years, at least another $10,000. The total was devastating, a number that punched the air from my lungs, over $460,000. Almost $500,000. $500,000 that I had invested, not in stocks or property, but in my daughter's happiness, only to hear that her greatest desire was for me to die. Tears, fresh and bitter, fell onto the papers as I added and subtracted. If I had simply put that money into a savings account with compound interest, today I would have had more than $600,000. I could be living in a comfortable house, traveling the world, enjoying a secure and comfortable retirement instead of painstakingly counting pennies in this tiny apartment. But no, I had chosen to invest in love. I had chosen to believe that every penny spent on my daughter was money well spent, that every sacrifice was worth it, because in the end I would have a daughter who loved me and would take care of me in my old age. How utterly, terribly foolish I had been. I picked up the phone, my hand still trembling slightly, and dialed Rebecca's number. I needed to hear her voice one more time, not for reassurance, but for confirmation. I needed to confirm that she had truly uttered those terrible words. "What do you want now, Mom?" she answered with an impatient sigh after the 5th ring, her tone as brittle as ever. "Rebecca," I asked, my voice thin and wavering, "I need to know if you really meant what you said to me today." "Of course, I meant it," she replied without a hint of remorse, her words hitting me like physical blows. "Mom, it's time for you to understand that I need space. Your obsession with me isn't healthy." "Obsession," I repeated, incredulous, the word tasting like bile in my mouth. "You call a mother's love obsession?" "Yes, exactly that, and I hope that after today you finally get the message. I need you to respect my boundaries and let me live my life." I hung up the phone without another word, without a goodbye. There was no misunderstanding, no misinterpretation. My daughter truly believed that my love was a burden, that my presence in her life was a problem she desperately needed to solve. Hashka New Dawn, the unraveling begins. That night, sleep was an impossible dream. I lay awake, staring at the dimly lit ceiling, my mind a relentless carousel of memories. Every beautiful moment we had shared, every hug, every whispered "I love you, Mom" that had once fallen from her lips. Had it all been a lie? Or had I simply raised a daughter who had become so utterly selfish that she couldn't see beyond her own immediate needs? At 3 a.m, a subtle but profound shift occurred within me. The overwhelming sadness, the crushing weight of betrayal began to transform, morphing into something entirely different. It was a cold, simmering anger, a righteous indignation, and most importantly, a crystal-clear understanding that I had been used, manipulated, and then discarded like a crumpled tissue. My daughter wanted me to die. Well, perhaps it was time to give her exactly what she asked for, but not in the way she expected. The next day, I awoke with a mental clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The sadness had retreated, replaced by something far more potent, an unshakable determination. If my daughter wanted me to disappear from her life, I would oblige, but it would be on my terms, and it would be a disappearance she would never forget. I dressed meticulously in my best clothes, a quiet dignity settling over me, and stepped out with a newly defined purpose. My first stop was the bank, specifically the branch where I maintained a joint account with Rebecca, ostensibly for her house's emergency expenses. It was an account I had opened just in case, a cushion I had generously stocked with $20,000 for any unforeseen events that might arise. "Good morning, Mrs. Johnson," greeted Mr. Fowler. Martinez, the manager, a man who had known me for years. "How can I help you today?" "I want to close joint account number 458728891, I stated, a serene smile playing on my lips. He interpreted it as kindness. In reality, it was pure, unadulterated vengeance. "Are you sure?" he asked, a hint of concern in his voice as he checked his computer screen. "That account has a considerable balance of $20,000. "Completely sure," I replied, signing the necessary papers with a steady, resolute hand. Seeing those $20,000 transferred back into my personal account gave me a profound satisfaction, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. This, I knew, was only the beginning. My next destination was the mortgage loan office. During the previous year, when David had lost his job, I had co-signed their mortgage. This meant that if they failed to make payments, the responsibility would fall squarely on me. Crucially, it also meant I had rights to that very property. "Mrs. Johnson," Ms. Williams, the loan officer, greeted me. "What brings you here today?" "I want to review the mortgage contract where I appear as a co-signer," I explained, my voice calm and collected. "I need to understand exactly what my rights and obligations are." While she searched for the documents, my mind drifted back to the day I had signed those papers. Rebecca had wept with emotion. "Thank you, Mom. I don't know what we'd do without you. You're our savior," she had declared, hugging me tightly. David had also expressed his gratitude, promising faithfully that they would never have a late payment. "Here are the documents," Ms. Williams said, placing a thick folder before me. "As a co-signer, you are indeed responsible for the payments if the primary holders cannot make them. But you also have the right to reclaim the property if you believe the debtors won't be able to fulfill their obligations." "Exactly," I finished, examining the papers meticulously. "Is there a problem with the payments?" she asked, her concern professionally veiled. "I'm evaluating the situation," I replied, carefully placing a copy of all the documents into my bag. "What would I have to do if I decided to exercise my rights as a co-signer?" "You would have to demonstrate that there's a risk of default, or that there have already been significant delays," she explained. "In your case, I see that you covered 8 months of payments last year, which is already sufficient evidence that the primary holders lack financial stability." Perfect. David, I had learned from Rebecca herself, had lost his job again just last week. She had relayed the information unknowingly, hoping for indirect help. But what she was actually doing was handing me the weapons for my quiet, meticulous revenge. I left that office with a triumphant smile. My dear daughter had no idea of the storm that was rapidly brewing. Severing the ties, strategic disengagement. My third and final stop that day was the office of my personal lawyer, Mr. Anel Adams. Anel, a distinguished 70-year-old gentleman, had been a dear friend of my late husband's and knew my entire family situation intimately. He had witnessed my decades of sacrifices for Rebecca firsthand. "Julieta," he greeted me warmly, rising to shake my hand. "What brings you to my office? It's not common to see you here." "Anel, I need your help with something very important," I told him, settling into the chair opposite his large mahogany desk. "I want to completely change my will." His eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise. Has something happened with Rebecca? He asked, his voice laced with concern. I recounted everything. Every hurtful word, every moment of contempt, the chilling indifference with which she had wished for my death on her own birthday. Anel listened in silence, his expression growing steadily more serious with each painful detail. Julieta, he finally said, his voice soft with genuine empathy, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I never thought Rebecca was capable of something like that after everything you've done for her. Me neither, I sighed, the exhaustion of the past day finally catching up to me. But I've made my decision. I want to change my will and leave everything to a charitable organization. I also want to set up a trust fund for my grandchildren, but Rebecca can't have access to that money until they turn 25. That can certainly be done, Anel nodded, already making notes. Do you also want to change the beneficiaries of your life insurance? Of course, I replied, my voice firm. Anything with Rebecca's name on it, I want to change it. My daughter wants me to die, but when I do, she's not going to receive a single penny from me. We spent the next 2 hours meticulously reviewing all my legal documents. My $100,000 life insurance policy, my savings, my apartment, my investments. Everything that had once been carefully designated for Rebecca would now be rerouted to the Orphans Foundation, an organization where I had volunteered for years and deeply respected. There's something else, I added, just as we were concluding. I want you to prepare all the documents to reclaim the house where Rebecca lives. As the co-signer of the mortgage, I have rights, and her husband just lost his job again. Anel's eyes lit up with a knowing understanding. Now I see where you're going with all of this. Are you sure you want to go that far, Julieta? Completely sure, I replied, a determination in my voice that surprised even myself. My daughter told me her life would be easier if I disappeared. Well, I'm going to disappear, but first, I'm going to make sure she understands exactly what it means to live without me and without everything I've done for her. When I left Anel's office, darkness had already fallen. I walked through the familiar streets of my neighborhood, feeling strangely renewed, as if I had just awakened from a very long, suffocating dream. For 45 years, my entire existence had revolved around Rebecca. I had sacrificed my own dreams, my own desires, to give her everything she wanted. But no more. I returned to my apartment and poured myself a glass of wine, a simple luxury I hadn't allowed myself in years. Toasting myself was a completely new experience, but it felt incredibly liberating. I took out my phone and dialed a number I had saved months ago, but had never dared to use. It was for a travel agency specializing in retirees, offering packages for living abroad. Good evening. This is Julieta Johnson, I said when they answered. I saw your promotion about living in Switzerland. Could you send me complete information? Of course, Mrs. Johnson. Switzerland is a very popular destination among our clients. We have several programs, as have from temporary stays to permanent residency. What kind of information do you need? Everything, I replied without hesitation. I want to know everything about how a 72-year-old person can start a new life in Switzerland. After hanging up, I stood at the window, looking out at the city where I had lived my entire life. Soon, all of this would be just a memory. My daughter had asked for my disappearance as a birthday gift, and I was going to grant it to her in the most spectacular way possible. What Rebecca didn't know was that her wish was about to become her worst nightmare. The grand disappearance. The next few days were a whirlwind, a dizzying roller coaster of emotions and secret preparations. Each morning, I woke with a strange mix of lingering pain and an unshakable determination that propelled me forward with my plan. It was as if I had woken from a long slumber, a self-imposed prison where I had lived solely to please my daughter. Now, finally, I was living for myself. On Wednesday morning, my phone rang. It was Rebecca. For a fleeting moment, my heart sped up, a tiny, foolish part of me hoping she had reconsidered, that she might apologize for the terrible words she had uttered. How incredibly naive I still was. Mom, she said, her voice carrying that familiar, cold, businesslike tone she had adopted lately. I need you to do me a favor. Not even a hello or a how are you. She went straight to the point, as if I were her personal assistant, eternally on call. What do you need? I asked, genuinely curious to see the depths of her audacity. The twins have a presentation at school on Friday, and David and I have an important work dinner. Could you watch them that night? The irony was sharp, almost delicious. The very woman who had wished for my death as a birthday gift was now casually asking me to watch her children, as if nothing had transpired, as if I were still a resource available 24/7. I can't, I replied simply, letting the words hang in the air. What do you mean you can't? She demanded, genuine surprise lacing her voice. Evidently, she wasn't accustomed to hearing no from me. I have other plans, I lied, a small, private smile playing on my lips. A smile she couldn't see. What plans could you possibly have? She asked, her tone condescending, dismissive. As if, at 72 years old, I didn't have the right to a life of my own. Plans that are none of your business, I countered, keeping my voice remarkably calm. Find another sitter. But Mom, I can't get a sitter on such short notice. Besides, since when do you charge me to watch your own grandchildren? There it was, the classic emotional manipulation, the guilt trip she had perfected over years. But this time, it wouldn't work. Since you told me that your greatest gift would be for me to die, I answered, my voice deliberately cold. If you want me to disappear from your life, I'm starting now. There was a long, stunned silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Rebecca let out a sarcastic laugh, brittle and dismissive. Seriously? You're going to punish me like you're a little brat? She scoffed. I thought after a few days the drama would be over. It's not drama, Rebecca. It's respect for your wish. You wanted me to disappear, so that's what I'll do. Fine, she snapped, annoyance thick in her voice. If you want to be that childish, that's on you. But don't come crying later when you're lonely. She hung up without a goodbye. Perfect. Every interaction confirmed that I was making the absolute right decision. That afternoon, I returned to the bank, this time to do something I never thought I would, withdraw most of my savings in cash. It was $30,000, crisp bills that I carefully placed in an envelope and secured in my personal safe, the nest egg I would need for my new life in Switzerland. I also called the travel agency and confirmed my trip, a flight to Zurich for next Tuesday, with the exhilarating option to extend my stay indefinitely. The initial cost was $5,000, money I paid without blinking an eye. It was, I realized, the most expensive and yet the most intelligent investment I had made in years. On Thursday morning, I received an unexpected visit. It was Elvara, my neighbor, a vibrant 68-year-old woman who lived next door and with whom I had forged a quiet friendship over the past 5 years. Julieta, she said, settling into my living room with a steaming cup of coffee, her gaze perceptive. You look different these days. Has something happened? Elvara had been a silent witness to all my sacrifices for Rebecca. She had seen me cancel plans with her to rush to my daughter's aid whenever Rebecca beckoned. She had seen the bags of expensive gourmet food I would buy to take to Rebecca, while I myself subsisted on canned soup to save money. I told her everything, every painful detail of what had transpired on Rebecca's birthday. And then, with a newfound boldness, all the plans I had been meticulously making throughout the week. My God, Julieta, Elvara murmured, her eyes brimming with tears. I can't believe Rebecca would say something so cruel to you after everything you've done for her. The worst part is that she said it as if it were the most normal thing in the world, I explained, a fresh wave of hurt washing over me. As if I were merely a nuisance in her life that needed to be eliminated. And you're really going to Switzerland? She asked, her voice hushed. Yes, I replied firmly. I've already bought the ticket. I'm leaving on Tuesday. Elvara gently took my hands. You know you have my full support, right? What Rebecca did to you is unforgivable. There's something else, I confided, lowering my voice conspiratorially. I'm going to need your help with something very important. I then laid out my complete plan, how I wanted Rebecca to truly believe I had died, at least for a while. Elvara would be my accomplice, the person who would discover my empty apartment and the farewell letter. It's brilliant, Elvara murmured, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. That ungrateful child is finally going to understand what it means to lose you. Will you help me? I asked, a tremor of vulnerability in my voice. Of course I will. In fact, I think it's exactly what Rebecca needs to wake up. That night, I dedicated myself to crafting the most important letter of my life. It was the letter Rebecca would find, the one that would change everything forever. I wrote and rewrote every word, ensuring it conveyed precisely what I wanted to say. "My dear Rebecca," the letter began, "you asked me as a birthday gift to disappear from your life, and I have decided to grant your wish. When you read this letter, I will already be far from here, starting the life I should have lived years ago instead of sacrificing it all for you." I continued writing for hours, meticulously documenting every penny I had spent on her, every sacrifice I had made, every opportunity I had missed by always being available for her needs. But it wasn't a bitter letter. It was, I realized, an educational letter. I wanted her to understand, with chilling precision, exactly what she had lost. "Along with this letter, you will find all the legal documents I have signed this week," I continued, my pen scratching across the paper. "The change of will, the cancellation of your health insurance that I paid for, the notification that as the co-signer of your mortgage, I have decided to exercise my rights due to David's job instability, and the cancellation of all financial benefits you received from me." It became a 23-page document, meticulously detailing every single thing that was about to change in her life now that I had disappeared, just as she had wanted. "Your life will be much easier without me," the letter concluded, "but it will also be much more expensive. I hope it's worth it." On Friday night, as I packed my most essential belongings into 2 sturdy suitcases, my phone rang. It was Rebecca. I didn't answer. She called 3 more times, but I simply let the phone ring. I had nothing left to say to her. The next day, Saturday, David appeared at my door, his face etched with exhaustion and desperation. "Julieta," he pleaded, his voice thin. "Rebecca told me what happened between you two. I know what she said was wrong, but please don't do this to our family." "Do what?" I asked, feigning an innocence I no longer possessed. "Stop helping us. Just withdrawing from our lives like this. The kids need you. We need you." How incredibly interesting. When Rebecca wanted to get rid of me, I was a nuisance. But now that they realized everything I did for them, suddenly, they needed me. "David," I said calmly, "your wife was very clear with me. My presence in her life is a burden she no longer wants to bear. I'm just respecting her wishes." "But Julieta, you know how Rebecca is when she gets mad. She didn't mean it." "Oh, she didn't?" I pressed, my gaze unwavering, because she sounded pretty convincing when she wished for my death as a birthday gift. David lowered his head. He knew he had no argument to defend the indefensible. "Please," he insisted, "give me a chance to fix this. I'll talk to Rebecca. I'll make her understand how wrong she is." "It's too late for that," I replied, slowly closing the door, leaving him on the doorstep. "Give my grandchildren a kiss for me." Sunday was my last day in that city, a poignant farewell to a life I had once known. I spent the morning walking through the places that had held deep significance in my journey. The hospital where I had dedicated 40 years of my life, the park where I had taken Rebecca as a child, the church where I had married her father. It was my silent, deeply personal farewell to a life I had lived almost entirely for others. On Monday, I would finally begin a life that I would live completely for myself. On Sunday night, sleep eluded me, not from nerves or regret, but from a strange, exhilarating emotion I hadn't felt in decades. The keen anticipation of an adventure. At 72 years old, I was finally about to embark on the life I had always dreamed of, but never dared to live. At 5 in the morning on Monday, Elvira, precisely as we had arranged, knocked softly on my door. She carried fresh coffee and a knowing smile that filled me with an unexpected surge of energy. "Ready for your great escape?" she asked, winking conspiratorially. "More than ready," I replied, my voice steady as I carried my 2 suitcases to the door. "Do you have the spare keys to my apartment?" "Here they are," she confirmed, displaying the set of keys I had given her the night before. "And I also have the letter for Rebecca and all the legal documents you're going to leave on her table." We had planned everything down to the minutest detail. Elvira would wait until Wednesday to go to Rebecca's apartment and deliver the documents, pretending that she had found my apartment empty and had grown worried about my sudden disappearance. It would be she who would break the news to Rebecca that I was gone forever. "Remember," I instructed, as we heard the faint sound of a cab pulling up, "you have to act very worried. Tell her I didn't answer the phone for 2 days, that you knocked on my door and I didn't respond, and that when you used the emergency keys, you found the apartment empty and the letter on her table. Don't you worry, Julieta, Elvira assured me, her eyes twinkling mischievously. I was a drama teacher for 30 years. It's going to be the performance of my life. The cab arrived punctually at 6 a.m. As they loaded my suitcases, I took one last lingering look at my apartment. I had lived there for 15 years, but strangely, I felt no overwhelming nostalgia. It was as if I was finally freeing myself from a self-imposed prison. To the airport? The cab driver inquired. To the airport, I confirmed, and in those two simple words, I felt the undeniable beginning of my new existence. During the 40-minute ride, I reflected on everything I was leaving behind. My volunteer work at the hospital, my comfortable daily routines, the constant consuming worry about Rebecca and her endless problems. But more profoundly, I thought about everything that awaited me. The boundless freedom to make my own decisions, to spend my money solely on myself, to live without the perpetual weight of my daughter's emotional demands. At the airport, as I waited for my flight to be called, I received 3 missed calls from Rebecca. I didn't answer. Then a text message flashed across the screen. Mom, you're being ridiculous. The kids are asking about you. Call me. I deleted the message without replying. It was fascinating, I mused, how now that I wasn't available 24/7, she suddenly needed me. Zurich, a symphony of freedom. The flight to Zurich was long, stretching across continents and time zones, but it was also remarkably peaceful. For the first time in years, no one knew exactly where I was. No one could call me to ask for favors, or for money, or for my time. It was an intoxicating sensation of freedom, a feeling I hadn't truly experienced since before I became a mother. During the 12-hour journey, I took out my journal and meticulously documented everything that had transpired in the last week. Every minute detail, every raw emotion, every courageous decision that had led me to this pivotal moment. I wanted to remember, with vivid clarity, precisely what it felt like to liberate myself from a toxic relationship, even when that relationship was with my own daughter. I arrived in Zurich on Tuesday night, local time, feeling a quiet thrill of accomplishment. A friendly representative from the travel agency was waiting for me at the airport, holding a sign with my name on it. He was a kind young man named Klaus, who spoke perfect English. Mrs. Johnson, he greeted me with a genuine smile, his eyes sparkling with welcome. Welcome to Switzerland. I hope you're ready for a new adventure. More than ready, I replied, and for the first time in weeks, my smile was completely authentic, reaching my eyes. Klaus escorted me to a charming, beautifully furnished apartment in the heart of Zurich, which he had rented for me for 1 month, giving me time to decide if I wished to stay permanently. It was small but exquisitely cozy, with windows that overlooked a lovely, verdant park and offered a partial, glittering view of the lake. Here is all the information about the city, Klaus said, handing me a thick folder. Places to eat, activities for people your age, German classes, social groups. I've also scheduled a meeting for you with a financial advisor for tomorrow afternoon to help you with the paperwork if you decide to stay. Permanently. That night, I slept better than I had in years. There was no phone that could ring, no one who needed anything from me, no responsibilities beyond the blissful act of taking care of myself. On Wednesday morning, I woke early, feeling refreshed and invigorated, and immediately set out to explore the city. I found a charming cafe by the lake and enjoyed a leisurely breakfast, savoring every bite. I bought fresh, vibrant flowers for my temporary apartment, a small indulgence that brought me immense joy. And then, for the first time in decades, I spent money on something completely unnecessary, a beautiful silk scarf that cost $100. I bought it simply because I liked it, without a moment's hesitation or worry about the price, or whether that money could be better invested in my daughter's needs. As I walked through the picturesque streets of Zurich, I mentally calculated how much money I had spent on Rebecca in just the last 5 years alone. Between the mortgage payments when David was unemployed, the twins' braces, the constant gifts, the gas money to drive to watch the children, the endless bags of groceries I always brought when I visited, it had been at least $50,000. $50,000 I could have used to travel the world, to live comfortably, to finally fulfill the dreams I had postponed for decades. Instead, I had given it all to a daughter who considered my love a burden and my presence a nuisance. At 2 in the afternoon, Zurich time, I calculated that it would be 8 in the morning in my hometown. Elvira would be preparing to go to Rebecca's apartment to deliver the letter, the document that would change everything. I found a peaceful bench by the tranquil lake and waited. I knew, with an eerie certainty, that in just a few hours my phone would begin to ring desperately. Rebecca would finally begin to understand what it truly meant to lose me. Hush. The reckoning, when absence speaks volumes. At precisely 5 in the afternoon, my phone, which I had deliberately kept silent, began to vibrate against the bench. It was Rebecca. I let it ring until it stopped, a small smile playing on my lips. Immediately it rang again. Again Rebecca. This time I answered. "Mom," she shrieked, her voice cracking, laced with a raw panic I had never heard before. "Where are you? Elvira came to the house with a letter from you. She said you've disappeared. What's going on?" "Hello, Rebecca," I replied calmly, enjoying the serene beauty of the Swiss lake as I spoke. "Did you read the letter yet?" "Yes, I read it. Are you crazy? How could you do this to us?" "Where are you?" "I'm exactly where I need to be," I answered, my voice steady and unwavering. "Far away from you, just as you wanted." "But I didn't want this. I didn't want you to actually leave. I was just angry. I didn't mean it." There it was, Rebecca's typical tactic, minimizing the profound harm she had inflicted, attempting to make me feel guilty for simply reacting to her sheer cruelty. "You didn't mean it when you told me that your greatest birthday wish was for me to die?" I challenged her, the memory still fresh and searing. "Because you sounded pretty convincing. It was just, I was just frustrated. David lost his job again. The kids are giving me problems at school. I'm so stressed. I shouldn't have taken it out on you." "You're right," I agreed, my tone unwavering. "You shouldn't have. But it's done, and words, Rebecca, once spoken, can't be taken back." "But Mom, please come back. We need you. I need you." How incredibly interesting. Now she needed me. Now that she had meticulously read the letter detailing all the financial benefits she had lost. Now that she knew she could lose her house. Now that she understood she would have to pay for her own health insurance and find a sitter for the twins. "Do you need me, Rebecca?" I asked her directly, my voice cutting through her pleas. "Or do you simply need my money?" There was a long, telling silence on the other end of the line. "I need you," she finally murmured, but her voice lacked any real conviction. "Rebecca, for 45 years, I lived for you. I sacrificed my dreams, my money, my time, my opportunities, and when I finally needed to feel that you loved me and valued me, you told me you'd rather I was dead." Those words broke my heart in a way I will never be able to fix. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." Sorry is not enough, Rebecca. The damage is done. And you know what? Maybe it was the best thing you could have said to me, because it finally opened my eyes and made me understand that I've been living my life all wrong. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tinged with confusion. "I mean that for the first time in decades, I am living for me, and it feels absolutely wonderful." "Where are you, Mom? Please tell me," Rebecca begged, her voice now choked with tears. "The kids are asking about their grandma. They don't understand why you haven't come to see them." It was fascinating how, now that I wasn't constantly available, the grandchildren suddenly missed me. For all those years, when I canceled my own plans to watch them, when I bought them expensive gifts, when I tirelessly took them to the park while Rebecca went shopping, it was just what was expected of me. But now that I was gone, my absence was acutely felt. "The kids will be fine," I replied, my gaze fixed on the majestic Swiss mountains in the distance. "They're resilient. What they will learn is that actions have consequences and that hurtful words can destroy relationships forever." "But Mom, please, you can't just disappear like this. What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? How will we know?" Now she was worried about my well-being. How conveniently timed. "Rebecca, in the last 5 years, I've had 3 episodes of high blood pressure that sent me to the hospital. Do you know how many times you visited me? None. You always had something more important to do. So, don't come to me now with concerns about my health." "That's not true," she protested weakly. "It is true. The first time I was hospitalized, I called you from the emergency room. You told me you couldn't come because you had a hair appointment. The second time was David's birthday and you were celebrating. The third time, you simply didn't answer the phone." The profound silence on the other end of the line confirmed that she remembered every single occasion perfectly. I thought it wasn't serious," she murmured. "Of course, because my health was never a priority for you, but my checks were." "It's not about the money," Rebecca screamed, her voice reaching a desperate pitch. "It's about you. I miss you, Mom." "Do you miss me, Rebecca?" I asked, my voice holding a steely edge. "Or do you miss having someone available 24/7 to solve all your problems?" I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. It immediately rang again, but this time I turned it off completely. I needed peace to fully savor my first true night of freedom. That evening, I dined alone at an elegant restaurant by the lake. I ordered the most expensive dish on the menu, exquisite salmon with caviar that cost $80, and I drank an entire bottle of fine French wine. It had been years since I had allowed myself such a luxury, always believing the money could be better used for Rebecca. The battle for dignity. The next day, Thursday, I cautiously turned on my phone and was met with a barrage, 47 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Rebecca and David. The messages evolved, starting with pleas and quickly escalating to thinly veiled threats. "Please, Mom, answer." "We're so worried," the first one pleaded. "If you don't answer, we're going to call the police," the fifth warned. The 10th stated, "We already called the police. They said there's nothing they can do because you left a letter explaining your departure." The 15th admitted, "The bank called us. You canceled the joint account. How are we going to pay for emergencies?" It was both disheartening and strangely beautiful to witness how swiftly the concern for my well-being had transformed into outright panic over the financial implications of my absence. I decided to answer just one message. "I'm fine. I'm exactly where I need to be. Don't look for me." The response came in less than 5 minutes. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're going to ruin us. The mortgage lawyer called us. He says you can take our house." There it was, the raw, unvarnished truth. She wasn't genuinely worried that I might be suffering or in danger. She was terrified because she had finally grasped the monumental financial implications of losing me. I replied, "Now you understand what it's worth to have me in your life. Too bad you realized it too late." That afternoon, I had my scheduled meeting with the Swiss financial advisor. He was an older gentleman, Mr. Herrmeyer, impeccably professional, who patiently helped me understand all my options for permanent residency in Switzerland. "With your current savings and your American pension," he explained, his voice calm and reassuring, "you can live comfortably here for the rest of your life. Switzerland boasts excellent medical care programs for retired foreigners, and the quality of life is simply exceptional." For the first time in decades, I spoke openly about my finances without the constant, gnawing worry of needing to save money for Rebecca's next emergency. It was an incredibly liberating experience to calculate my expenses based solely on my own needs and desires. "You can also invest part of your savings in the Swiss economy," Mr. Meyer continued. "The returns are stable and secure. In 5 years, you could potentially double your assets if you invest wisely." Double my assets. How many times had I had that very opportunity, that very choice? But I had always prioritized spending the money on my daughter's whims and perceived needs. "Is there anything else I should tell you?" the advisor added, a compassionate look in his eyes. "We have many clients in situations similar to yours. Older people who have come to Switzerland looking for a new start after complicated family relationships. You are not alone in this experience." That information comforted me deeply. I wasn't the only mother who had been manipulated and then discarded by ungrateful children. There was an entire community of individuals who had chosen their own happiness over the toxic demands of their families. On Friday morning, I eagerly joined a hiking group specifically for older people. There were 8 women and 4 men, all between 60 and 75 years old, all vibrant and clearly looking for adventure and new experiences. During the bus ride, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Ingrid, a cheerful 71-year-old German who had arrived in Switzerland 2 years earlier. "What brought you here?" she asked me kindly as we admired the breathtaking landscape passing by the window. "A daughter who told me that her greatest birthday wish was for me to die," I answered without any filters, my voice surprisingly steady. I no longer had the energy or the desire to sugarcoat the harsh reality of my past. Ingrid looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. Seriously? Completely seriously. After financing her house, practically raising her children, and sacrificing my retirement for her needs, she told me that my presence in her life was an unbearable burden. "My goodness," Ingrid murmured, shaking her head. "And what did you do?" "What?" I asked. "I disappeared from her life and here I am." Ingrid smiled, a genuine look of admiration on her face. "You are very brave. It took me 5 years to make the decision to walk away from my toxic family. My son and daughter-in-law treated me like an ATM with legs." For the rest of the day, Ingrid and I shared our stories, finding profound resonance in each other's experiences. She had come to Switzerland after realizing that her adult children only contacted her when they needed money for their lavish vacations, their new cars, or their latest whims. When she finally decided to set firm boundaries, they had accused her of being a selfish mother and threatened not to let her see her grandchildren. The first few months were incredibly difficult, Ingrid confessed, as we walked through a charming medieval town. Guilt ate me up. I thought maybe I really was selfish, that a good mother should always sacrifice for her children. "And what changed your perspective?" I inquired, eager to hear her wisdom. I realized that my children never once wondered if I was happy, if I had enough money for my own needs, or if my constant sacrifices were hurting me. They only cared about what I could give them. That's not love, Giulietta. That's exploitation. Her words resonated deeply in my heart, echoing a truth I had struggled to articulate for decades. For so long, I had confused emotional manipulation with filial love, constant demands with genuine need. That night, back in the sanctuary of my apartment, I decided to turn on my phone for what I intended to be the last time in several days. I found a staggering 62 missed calls and 47 text messages. Most were from Rebecca and David, but there were also several from unknown numbers. I read the text messages chronologically, observing the stark evolution of my daughter's panic. The first ones were still emotional. "Please, Mom, please come back. We need you. The kids are crying for you." But they gradually became more desperate and undeniably more financial. "The bank called us for a meeting on Friday. They say that as the co-signer, you have the right to reclaim the house. They can't take our house away for a misunderstanding." By the 5th day, the messages had turned aggressive. "This is ridiculous, Mom. You're ruining our lives over a tantrum. Act like an adult and come back." And finally, a raw, desperate plea. "I called all the hospitals, the police, your friends. No one knows where you are. If something happens to you, it's going to be my fault. Please just tell me you're okay." It was fascinating to observe that at no point did Rebecca genuinely apologize for wishing me dead. At no point did she acknowledge the sheer cruelty of her words or express real remorse. It all revolved around the negative consequences my absence had for her. I decided to reply with one last message. "I am perfectly fine and happier than I have been in years. What you are experiencing now are the natural consequences of your actions. I hope this experience helps you understand the value of the people you love before it's too late with others in your life." The response came almost immediately. "Please, Mom, we can fix this. I promise I'll never say horrible things again. Just come back." I wrote my final response. "Empty promises don't mend broken hearts. Rebecca, the words you said to me revealed what you really think of me. You can't take that truth back with desperate promises." After sending that message, I blocked her number and all the numbers associated with David. I also blocked the unknown numbers that had been calling me. It was time to close that chapter for good. The battle for dignity and justice. On Monday morning, I met again with Mr. Gelly Herrmeyer to sign the final papers that would allow me to reside permanently in Switzerland. I also made arrangements to permanently transfer my American pension and begin the official process of selling my apartment in my hometown. "Are you sure you want to make this permanent, Giulietta?" Mr. Meyer asked me, a look of careful consideration on his face. It's a very big decision. I have never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied, signing each document with a firm, unwavering hand. For the first time in decades, I am making decisions based solely on my own happiness, not on the demands of others. That afternoon, I received a call from Elvira, my dear neighbor and accomplice. Her voice sounded excited, almost gleeful. "Julieta, you have to hear this," she exclaimed. "Rebecca came to my apartment yesterday crying hysterically. She begged me to tell you to come back, that it had been a terrible misunderstanding." "And what did you tell her?" I asked, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. "I told her the truth, that what she had said to you was unforgivable, and that if I were you, I would have disappeared forever, too. You should have seen her face when she realized that even her neighbors knew how cruel she had been to you." "Did she mention anything about the financial problems?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "Oh yes, she told me that without your help, they can't pay the mortgage, that the bank is pressuring them, that David can't find a stable job, and that the kids need things for school that they simply can't afford. Basically, she realized everything you did for them only when she lost it. It was exactly what I had expected. She didn't miss me as a person. She missed my function as a financial provider and a relentless problem solver." "Elvira," I told her, my voice clear and resolved, "when someone asks about me, especially Rebecca, I want you to tell them that I'm dead to them. Because in a sense, it's true. The Julieta who constantly sacrificed herself for an ungrateful daughter really died on her birthday." "I understand perfectly," Elvira replied. "And you know what? I think it's the best death you could have chosen." 3 weeks after my arrival in Switzerland, my new life had taken shape in ways I never could have imagined. I had enrolled in German classes 3 times a week. I had started a watercolor painting course on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and had even joined a lively book club for expats that met on Sundays. For the first time in decades, my calendar was full of activities that I had chosen myself, activities that brought me genuine pleasure and fostered personal growth. But the most surprising thing was the money. Without Rebecca's constant financial demands, my savings not only remained stable, but they were actually growing. The investments I had made with Mr. Herrmeyer were already showing positive returns, and for the first time, I could calculate my financial future based solely on my own needs. On that Thursday morning, as I enjoyed breakfast at my favorite cafe by the lake, I received a call from an international number I didn't recognize. I hesitated to answer, but curiosity ultimately got the better of me. "Mrs. Julieta Johnson?" a female voice with a distinct American accent asked. "Yes, this is she. Who's calling?" "My name is Sarah Williams. I'm a social worker in the Family Services Department in your hometown. I'm calling because we've received a complaint about your well-being." My blood ran cold. "A complaint? What kind?" "Your daughter, Rebecca Johnson, filed a complaint alleging that you may be suffering from dementia or cognitive decline, and that you've made financial and life decisions that put you at risk. According to her, you disappeared suddenly and are living in precarious conditions abroad." I simply couldn't believe what I was hearing. Rebecca had descended to the extreme of involving social services, inventing a mental illness to invalidate my decisions and force my return. "Miss Williams," I replied in a firm, unwavering voice, "I do not suffer from dementia or cognitive decline. I am living in Switzerland by my own choice, in a comfortable apartment with excellent medical care, and in perfect mental health. My daughter's allegations are completely false." "I understand your position, Mrs. Johnson," the social worker responded, her tone professional. "But we do need to verify your well-being. Would it be possible to coordinate a medical and psychological evaluation through the American consulate in Switzerland?" "Of course," I replied without hesitation. "I am willing to undergo any evaluation that demonstrates I am in perfect mental health and that my decisions have been made with complete lucidity." After coordinating the details for the evaluation, I hung up the phone, feeling a turbulent mix of rage and disbelief. Rebecca had crossed a line of no return. Not only had she wished me dead, but now she was actively trying to destroy my mental credibility, all to regain control over my money and my life. I immediately called my lawyer, Anel, back in my hometown. "Julieta," he greeted me with concern in his voice. "I'm glad to hear your voice. I've had a very interesting week with your daughter." "I bet you have," I responded dryly. "I just spoke with social services. Rebecca is accusing me of having dementia." "That's not all." Anel sighed. "She also hired another lawyer to try to challenge all the legal changes you made before you left. She's alleging that you weren't in your right mind when you signed them." "Can she do that?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. "She can try, but she doesn't have solid legal grounds. I have recordings of all our conversations where you clearly demonstrate total lucidity. Furthermore, the fact that you meticulously planned your departure and are living independently in Switzerland completely contradicts any allegations of cognitive decline." "What else is she doing?" I pressed. "She has tried to access your bank accounts, alleging concern for your well-being. She also wanted to stop the process of reclaiming the house, but since everything is legally backed, and she herself signed the documents where she acknowledges that David lost his job again, she has no valid arguments." It was incredible, the lengths Rebecca was willing to go to get back the financial benefits she had lost. "Anel," I declared, a new resolve hardening my voice, "I want you to prepare a defamation lawsuit against my daughter. Her false allegations about my mental state could affect my reputation and my legal rights." "It would be my pleasure, Giulietta," Anel replied with a surprising degree of satisfaction. "After seeing how she has treated you, I think it's time for her to face the legal consequences of her actions." 2 days later, I showed up at the American consulate in Zurich for the medical and psychological evaluations. The American doctor who examined me was an older, experienced man who immediately grasped the underlying dynamics of the situation. "Mrs. Johnson," he told me after an exhaustive 3-hour evaluation, "not only are you in perfect mental health, but the decisions you have made demonstrate admirable lucidity and courage. Your daughter is clearly trying to manipulate the legal system to recover financial benefits. That will be officially documented." "Absolutely," I confirmed. "I'll send a detailed report to social services explaining that her allegations are unfounded and that you are living an independent and healthy life in Switzerland." That same afternoon, I received a call from the social worker. "Mrs. Johnson, we have received the medical report from the consulate. It is clear that your daughter's allegations are baseless. We are going to close the case and notify Rebecca that her complaints were unfounded." "Thank you," I replied. "Will this be in some kind of record?" "Yes. It will be documented that she filed a false complaint about a family member's well-being, which could have legal implications if it is repeated." Perfect. Rebecca had not only failed in her desperate attempt to invalidate my decisions, but now she had an official record of filing false complaints. A voice for the voiceless. That night, I decided to do something I had been contemplating for weeks. Write an open letter detailing my entire raw experience. Not for Rebecca, but for the countless other mothers who might be living in similar situations of insidious manipulation and emotional abuse from their adult children. I wrote for 4 hours straight, documenting every sacrifice I had made, every manipulation I had suffered, and every courageous step I had taken to reclaim my dignity and ultimately, my life. It was a 20-page letter that I titled, "When a Mother's Love Becomes Self-Destruction, My Story of Liberation at 72. I decided to send the letter to an online blog I had recently discovered, one that specialized in stories of older women who had found the courage to radically change their lives. A week later, I received an enthusiastic response from the editor. "Giulietta," she wrote, her excitement palpable. "Your story is powerful and inspiring. We have received hundreds of comments from women who completely identify with your experience. Would you be willing to participate in a video interview for our YouTube channel?" I accepted immediately. It was time, I realized, to use my personal pain and experience to help other women who were trapped in similar toxic family dynamics. The interview was published 2 weeks later, and to my astonishment, quickly went viral. Thousands of women shared heartbreakingly similar stories of adult children who emotionally manipulated them and financially exploited them. The comment section beneath the video was a poignant catalog of shared pain and profound recognition. "My 40-year-old son lives in my house, doesn't pay rent, and yells at me when I ask him to look for a job," one woman wrote. her words brimming with despair. My daughter only calls me when she needs money for her vacations, but she never has time to visit me when I'm sick, another shared, her grief palpable. I thought I was the only mother who felt used by her own children, a third confessed, echoing a sentiment I knew all too well. But the most impactful message, the one that truly moved me, arrived a week after the interview was published. I received an email from an address I immediately recognized. It was David, my former son-in-law. "Julieta," he wrote, his words carefully chosen, "I saw your interview on YouTube. I need you to know that I completely agree with you. What Rebecca said to you was unforgivable, and the way she has treated you for years is unacceptable. I myself have been a witness to how she manipulates and uses you, but I never had the courage to confront her because we were so dependent on your financial help." He continued, "I want you to know that the kids miss you a lot, and they don't understand why you don't come to see them anymore. Rebecca has told them that you're sick and can't visit, but I believe they deserve to know the truth when they are older." The email concluded with a somber note. "I know it's probably too late for apologies, but I wanted you to know that at least one person in this family acknowledges how badly we treated you and how much you sacrificed for us. I hope you are happy in your new life." I read the email 3 times, weighing each word before deciding how to respond. Finally, I wrote, "David, I appreciate your honesty, but apologies after the fact don't change the damage done. I hope this experience helps you to be a better husband and father, and that you teach your children to value the people who love them before it's too late." It was the first time anyone in my family had publicly acknowledged the abuse I had suffered. It didn't change my decision to stay away, but it did give me a sense of validation, a quiet acknowledgement I had been needing for years. The seeds of justice. My new life in Switzerland was flourishing in ways I never could have imagined. I had cultivated genuine friendships with people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give. I had rediscovered hobbies and passions that had long been dormant. I had found a profound sense of peace of mind and, perhaps most surprisingly, an unprecedented financial stability. And most importantly, I had reclaimed my dignity. 6 months after my arrival in Switzerland, my life had settled into a rhythm, a beautiful shape I had never dared to dream possible. It was a perfect spring morning when I received a call that would once again change everything. It was Elvara, my dear neighbor and accomplice, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Julieta, you have to hear this," she exclaimed. "Rebecca lost the house." My heart stopped for a moment. Despite everything, a small, stubborn part of me still worried about my grandchildren's well-being. "What exactly happened?" I asked, my voice tight. "The bank foreclosed on the mortgage last week. David couldn't find a stable job. They fell behind on the payments, and since you are the co-signer and are exercising your legal rights, the bank proceeded with the foreclosure. Rebecca came to me yesterday, crying hysterically." "And the kids?" I pressed. "They're fine. They moved to a small apartment on the other side of town. David finally got a job in a factory, earning a lot less than before, but at least it's something stable. Rebecca had to go back to work too." It was strange, the complex mix of feelings I experienced. I didn't feel joy for their suffering, not truly, but a deep, quiet satisfaction of justice. For the first time in their lives, Rebecca and David were experiencing the real, unvarnished consequences of their decisions without having someone, namely me, to rescue them. "Is there anything else?" Elvara continued. "Rebecca asked me if I knew how to contact you. She said she wants to genuinely apologize, that she finally understands everything she lost when she lost you." "And what did you tell her?" I asked, already knowing the answer. I told her that some wounds are simply too deep to heal, and that some words can never be taken back. I also told her that you are flourishing in your new life, and that it's probably best for both of you that she doesn't try to contact you. Elvara was right. Over these past 6 months, I had meticulously built an inner peace, a sanctuary within myself, that I didn't want to risk for empty promises from a daughter who had repeatedly shown that she only valued me when she needed me. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from my lawyer, Anel. "Julieta, I have some interesting news," he announced. "Rebecca's house has finally been sold by the bank, and since you were the co-signer, You have the right to recover your initial investment of $150,000 plus the accumulated interest." "How much is that in total?" I asked, my breath catching in my throat. $185,000, he confirmed. "The bank has already approved the transfer. The money will be in your Swiss account next week." It was incredible. Not only had I recovered my original investment, but I had gained an additional $35,000, money that would have been lost forever if I had continued to be the ever-sacrificing mother. "There's also something else," Anel continued, his voice hinting at more good news. "Your apartment in your hometown has finally sold. After commissions and expenses, the net amount is $95,000. In total, I was receiving almost $300,000 in assets that I had long given up for lost. With my existing savings and the wise investments I had made in Switzerland, my total net worth now exceeded $500,000. At 72 years old, I was richer, both financially and emotionally, than I had ever been in my entire life. That night, I celebrated at my favorite restaurant by the lake. I ordered French champagne, the bubbles dancing in the glass, and toasted the brave woman who had found the courage to start over when everything seemed utterly lost. As I dined, I thought about the entire tumultuous journey. I had started this path as a broken and humiliated mother, utterly devastated by the cruel words of an ungrateful daughter. But now, I was an independent woman, financially secure, surrounded by genuine friends, and living the life I had always secretly dreamed of. Rebirth, a legacy forged in courage. The next day, I decided to do something I had been considering for weeks. Write a full book about my experience. Not just my personal story, but a practical guide for other older women who might be trapped in similar toxic family relationships. I contacted a Swiss publisher that specialized in self-help and personal growth books. The editor, a perceptive woman named Brigitte, was immediately interested. "Julieta," she told me during our meeting, her eyes alight with enthusiasm, "your story touches on a topic that affects millions of women but is rarely talked about openly. Emotional abuse by adult children is an epidemic problem that desperately needs to be exposed." I spent the next 3 months immersed in writing, pouring my heart and wisdom onto the pages. The result was When Love Hurts: Freeing Yourself from Family Emotional Abuse After 70. The book meticulously documented not only my personal experience, but also offered practical strategies for recognizing manipulation, setting healthy boundaries, and finding the profound courage to prioritize one's own well-being. The book was published 8 months later and, to my astonishment, became an instant bestseller in several European countries. The letters I received from readers were nothing short of incredible. Women from all over the world wrote to me, sharing their own painful stories and telling me how my journey had given them the courage to make radical, life-altering changes in their own lives. "I read your book and finally understood that I am not a bad mother for refusing to continue to finance my 35-year-old son's irresponsibility," wrote Maria from Spain, her words echoing my own past struggles. "Your story helped me understand that true love does not require self-destruction," Carmen from Mexico shared with gratitude. "After reading your book, I sold my big house and moved to a small apartment I can afford without depending on my children's help. For the first time in years, I sleep in peace," Rosa from Argentina confessed, her relief palpable. But the letter that moved me the most, the one that truly brought tears to my eyes, arrived 1 year after the book's publication. It was from a young mother named Andrea. "Mrs. Johnson," she wrote, her handwriting earnest, "I'm 30 years old and have a 65-year-old mother who has sacrificed her whole life for me and my siblings. After reading your book, I realized that we are treating her exactly like Rebecca treated you. Your story opened my eyes and made me understand that I was repeating a toxic pattern that could destroy my relationship with my mother forever. Yesterday, I called my mom and apologized for all the years of taking her for granted. I also told her that I want to help her fulfill her own dreams instead of expecting her to always be available for mine. Thank you for helping me understand this before it was too late." That letter made me cry, not tears of sadness, but of pure, unadulterated joy. My pain had served a purpose, preventing other families from going through the same slow, agonizing destruction. 2 years after my transformative arrival in Switzerland, I received a physical letter in my mailbox, a rare occurrence in this digital age. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, but I couldn't immediately place it. When I opened it, my heart stopped. It was from my grandchildren, now 12 years old. "Dear Grandma Julieta," they wrote in earnest, childlike handwriting. "Dad told us the truth about why you left. He told us that Mom said some very ugly things to you, and that's why you decided to start a new life away from us. We want you to know that we miss you a lot and that we understand why you left. We also want you to know that we are proud of you for being so brave. When we are older, we would like to visit you in Switzerland if you want us to. We love you, Grandma." The letter was signed by both twins, and it even included charming drawings they had made of me, living happily in the Swiss mountains. I cried for an hour after reading that letter, not out of sadness, but from a profound understanding that my decision to preserve my dignity had been the right one. Even if it meant moving away from people I loved, I decided to write them back. "My dearest grandchildren," I wrote, my hands steady. "Your words are the most beautiful gift I have received in years. I love you deeply and always will, no matter the distance. When you are older and can make your own decisions, the doors to my heart and my home will always be open for you. Until then, I want you to know that your grandma is living a full and happy life, surrounded by beauty and peace. Keep this love you feel for me, but also learn from this experience. Words have the power to build or destroy, and relationships are based on mutual respect, not on unilateral sacrifice. I love you with all my heart." Hushed, a new chapter, a wiser heart. Today, 3 years after that terrible birthday that irrevocably changed my life forever, I am sitting on my balcony in Zurich, looking out at the majestic mountains as I write the last lines of my story. I am 75 years old, with assets exceeding $600,000, a best-selling book that has touched lives, dear friends from all over the world, and an inner peace I never thought I would experience again. Rebecca asked me, as a birthday gift, to disappear from her life. I granted her that wish in the most spectacular way possible. What she never calculated, what she could never have foreseen, was that by losing me, she not only lost a mother who loved her unconditionally, but she also lost the very person who had meticulously kept her financial world stable and secure for decades. My disappearance was, ironically, my gift to her. My new life was my ultimate gift to me, and it was worth every tear, every sacrifice, and every moment of pain that brought me here. Because sometimes the only way to truly save yourself is to have the courage to lose yourself completely in order to be reborn as the vibrant, authentic person you were always meant to be.